Boldwood presents Stuck in Paradise with You, written by Laura Carter and read by Kate Hanford and Craig Van Ness. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Prologue, September 2017. Carrie. If you've got this far, you're reading my letter. Thank you for not returning straight to sender, and please don't throw this in the trash before you've heard me out. You've blocked my emails, you've disappeared from social media, and won't reply to my messages. My calls ring out. So this is my last resort, an old-fashioned written letter. The final one. I'm back in New York. The baby isn't mine. When the firm found out about you and me, the partners all but gave me an ultimatum. Either I went or they plateaued you. So I resigned. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. There you were, beautiful, arresting, smart, and funny, the woman I'd become undeniably besotted with. But Anya was pregnant, I thought, with my child. I had to try to do the right thing by her and the baby. I moved to Chicago to be with them. You might remember me telling you that Anya had gone back home to Seattle after we separated. It was strained and awkward. We fought and griped at each other continually, as if all the reasons we split in the first place were heightened by the pregnancy. Anya had the baby 2 weeks ago. He's cute and fragile, but he isn't mine. It transpires she'd been seeing someone before we separated, and it turns out they were still at it behind my back the entire time I was in Chicago. It's a kick in the gut, I won't lie, but I can honestly tell you it doesn't hurt as much as the thought of you never speaking to me again. If you don't reply, I promise I won't try again. I'll leave you to move on with your life. But please know that I can't. I don't think I ever will, because I'll never find someone who has the effect on me that you do. We can be together now, Carrie. There's nothing left to stand in our way. I love you. Luke.
Chapter 1. Carrie. Oh, my little pup! I've missed you so much! Stepping into my Manhattan loft apartment, I bend to scoop up my pug, Eddie, whom I co-doggy parent with my neighbor and best friend, Callum. You are such a cute ickle furball, I say, scratching Eddie's ears as he licks my cheek. Behind Eddie, Callum closes the door to my apartment as he comes inside and says, Thanks, honey, I've missed you too, but less of the furball talk. Rolling my eyes, I reach out with my dog-free arm and pull Callum into a hug. Hey, you. How have you both been while I've been in Delaware? One of us has been messing all over the floor and even smudged crap into my brand new rug, Callum says, now with his head in my refrigerator and taking out a can of club soda. And what about the dog? I tease. Aha, very funny. You know, puppy training would be much easier if Eddie had 2 parents around. I set the dog on the lounge floor, and he runs toward his empty food and water bowls beneath my kitchen counter. Callum pours some of his soda into Eddie's water bowl. I watch as the dog drinks, then opens his mouth like a yawning hippo, and I wait for him to either belch or explode from the carbon dioxide bubbles. Thankfully, neither happens, so I decide not to comment on another of Callum's puppy parenting flaws. For now. I know, I say, apologetically, removing my rain jacket and hanging it over the extended arm of the luggage I just wheeled in from the airport. I'm sorry. How about Chinese takeout this evening? On me. It's Sunday evening. Callum and I usually stay in with takeout on Sunday evenings, and the beauty of living next door to each other, in addition to being able to share doggy care, is that we can eat food and watch movies in our pajamas, then walk 10 yards to bed. He leans back against the work surface. I would, but I have a date tonight. A date? But you broke up with Tom 2 days ago. Not that I should be surprised. Callum describes himself as a serial monogamist. He practices monogamy, but in a different relationship every 6 to 8 weeks. Plus, it's Sunday. Pajama day. Don't judge, sister, he says, pointing a finger in my direction as I bring myself to sit on a kitchen stool. I would have been on a date with Ben last night, but I was on daycare duties and I haven't got my head around the idea of canoodling in front of the pooch yet. Ugh, gross. I pick up Eddie from where our short-haired 4-month-old is now sniffing my toes, which are sore from being squished into pointed work heels all day and traipsing through airports. Poor Eddie doesn't need to see Daddy's gyrating butt. Do you? Eddie barks. Case in point. You should take a leaf out of my book, Callum tells me. How long has it been for you? Like, forever? Not forever. And I've been busy, which is actually the reason I asked you to come straight over. I wince. I have to go away again on a red-eye tomorrow morning. Only for 5 days. I should be back on Friday in time for you to have your Friday night out. Callum sighs. Oh, Carrie. I know, I'm really sorry. It's not like I want to go, but I don't have a choice. The tax partner, Eric, got sick, and I've been basically told by Rachel, the head of the entire New York office, that I have to go to the Caribbean. The client likes face-to-face meetings, apparently, and he's a huge client. The Caribbean? Again? Who'd have thought an offshore tax specialist would have so much fun? I smile. It won't be fun. It will be hideous, I promise. Dull, dry, boring. I'd much rather be here with you and Eddie, but you know how hard you've worked to change the narrative of your career. You're on the cusp of partnership, and at 31, that's a big deal. You need to be a yes girl for a short while longer, yada, yada, yada. Though he's feigning a yawn and looking to the wood beams above him, I step off my stool and kiss him on the cheek. Thank you. I will make it up to you. His flannel shirt smells a little like cigarettes and a lot like wet dog, but I decide not to tell him. You know you will. He reaches into the jar of dog treats I keep beside my coffee maker and offers one to Eddie, which is snaffled and carried off to the rug in the lounge area. Seriously, though, babes, there has to be more to life for you than running yourself into the ground for work. I draw in a breath. Not because Callum's words catch me off guard. They don't, I've heard them before. But because there isn't much more. With the exceptions of my mom out in the suburbs, my dad down in Florida, Callum and Eddie, work is everything to me. And that's just the way it is. Rather than explain this for the zillionth time, I search for our pug, who's now spitting crumbs of biscuit onto my upholstered footstool. I made a mistake early in my work life. One that could have cost me my career, and one that has forced me to prove myself at every possible juncture as someone who doesn't sleep her way to the top. I've slogged so hard and for so long, I don't know what I'd do without my job. So, where in the Caribbean this time? Callum asks, thankfully moving on to happier things. I hop down from my stool and fill the water unit on the coffee machine to hide my delight. A private island called Sharathonia? Sharathonia? Isn't that Joe Hettich's island? Is it? I ask, with fake nonchalance. He nudges into my side. You know it is. Laughter escapes me. Only a month ago, we were talking about how rock goddess Molly Martin married her third husband on the billionaire philanthropist's island. First-class flights, too. On account of Joe Hettich owning the airline. And 5 days, fully catered in his private resort. I've changed my mind. This is a great idea, and I think you need a chaperone. I turn to stand next to him. both of us resting back against the countertop, looking across my lounge-cum-diner-cum-kitchen space, and I lean my head onto his shoulder as we watch Eddie tearing up a stuffed toy. See, there is more to life. Callum kisses my temple. You know that's not what I mean. When I've smoked and drank myself into early cardiac failure, I'd like you to have more than just Eddie for company. Chapter 2. Carrie. Despite the ungodly hour of the morning and Callum's very late night, with a man whose tight ass is apparently still sleeping in his bed, my best friend and Eddie are standing on the sidewalk outside our West Village building. The swanky chauffeur-driven car I'm being whisked off to JFK in is another perk of working for Joe Hettich. As a senior tax advisor at my accountancy firm, I've met with extremely wealthy and well-respected people. Famous people, too. Yet the prospect of flying to Sharathonia Island to meet Mr. Hettich is intimidating. 18 months ago, I switched accountancy firms, from the firm I had worked for since the very first day of my career, and the same firm that I realized would never make me partner, despite 7 long years of trying to correct their prejudices. I moved to a firm that took me on with a promise of partnership by the end of quarter 3. This month, assuming I play my cards right. Hence, why I am in serious need of a nap en route to the airport. I double-check I have my e-boarding cards and my passport, hope again that I've packed appropriate luggage for a Caribbean resort in early September, but one at which I'll be engaged as a professional, and lean my head against the cool window for a few long blinks. "Would you like me to draw up the divider, Miss Briggs?" the driver asks. He's all fancily clad in a black suit, shirt, and tie. "That would be lovely, thank you." By the time I open my eyes, we're slowing to a stop outside my airport terminal. The driver opens my door before I even have a chance to unfasten my seatbelt, and I step out of the car to a trolley that's already being loaded with my luggage. I'm whisked through the airport and security and taken to a first-class lounge, where I'm placed on a high seat at a champagne bar and poured a flute of Krug bubbles, all the while referred to only as Ms. Briggs. I know this isn't what Callum meant when he said there must be more to life than traveling from place to place and working long hours. He wants me to have a someone, to let someone in. But right now, this all feels pretty great to me. Far, far safer than heartbreak. I'm one of the first passengers on the plane. And, like my fellow unbelievably fancy-class flyers, I'm given a tour of our reserved areas of the aircraft. My seat fully reclines into a flat bed, and I'm assured the 4-course meal I will be served is fine dining. I'm shown to 2 social areas, a hangout and a bar, and provided with complimentary loungewear to change into and save my own white pinstripe high-waisted shorts and matching jacket from the perils of travel. I wouldn't ordinarily fly in white, but deciding on an outfit that works for the heat of the Caribbean and looks business professional was no easy feat. On the rare occasion I take a vacation, I get out of the USA, away from it all. If Callum and I take a sunshine holiday, the packing is easy. Even easier if I book myself an adventure break somewhere like Fiji or New Zealand. With my cabin baggage stowed, I take a seat at the bar. While the remainder of the passengers are boarded, I eat caviar and enjoy my glass of fizz. The whole experience is remarkable, very much how the other half live. So far, this last-minute trip isn't too much of an imposition. "Cabin crew, cross-check, and seats for takeoff," the captain announces. I take my own seat inside my personal cubicle and flick through the entertainment offering, settling on a country music album, despite my inclination to enjoy a movie, because I really ought to research a little about Joe Hettich and his empire. From my leather laptop carrier, a treat to self from last year's bonus, I take the wad of documents my secretary emergency couriered to my apartment about Mr. Hettich's businesses. But first, I open my laptop, sign into Wi-Fi, and head to my client's website. As I scroll to the bottom of the main page and click About Us, my country music is switched to the airline safety briefing, and the corresponding video appears on my in-flight screen. Only I can't focus on the video that is awash with celebrity cameos because another face draws my attention much more. On my laptop screen is a photographed image of the relatively recently appointed CFO of Hettich's empire. And it feels as if his topaz blue eyes are staring into mine. Luke. I look back at his picture, my heart rate skyrocketing, my insides leaping like 1,000 frogs are bouncing around in there. And if he's the CFO, then the person I'm set to have business meetings with this week is also... I unbuckle my seatbelt and call for the air stewardess as I haphazardly stuff my belongings back into my cabin luggage. Excuse me, I need to get off this plane. A young blonde stewardess rushes my way. Miss Briggs, you need to take your seat for takeoff. I'm sorry, I can't. I need to get off the plane. I lock my laptop case, ready to go, ready to run from a collision with a ghost from my past. My biggest ever mistake. She places a gentle yet firm hand on my forearm. Ms. Briggs, we're already moving. I'm going to need you to take your seat. When I glance through the small oval window, I see we're taxiing. Holy mother of all things fucked.
Chapter 3. Luke. My luggage has been taken to my pod, and I've been handed a rum punch at one of Hettich's poolside bars. I've been coming out here to see Joe 3 or 4 times a year for the last 4 years, since the inception of his private resort, yet it still wows me every visit. Sharathonia Island, named after his wife's favorite butterfly, which is native to the Caribbean, same as her, is a small island nestled among the British Virgin Islands. It's exclusive to Joe, his family's main residence offshore, 10 guest pods, each with its own infinity pool and hot tub, and a small cluster of housing, which is home to a highly efficient army of staff. When they aren't here, Joe and his wife Ella split their time between London and New York residences. Kicking my feet up onto a footstool, I take a swig of the kind of rum punch you can only get under the sunshine of this stunning part of the world. It's been a baptism of fire taking over the role of CFO for the Hettich Group. A dream role in many respects, and one I never would have imagined reaching 8 years ago, when I was gunning to become the youngest ever partner of my accountancy firm, but one that comes with a proportionate amount of stress for the title. Leaning my head back, the sun warming my face and bringing spots to my eyes even behind my shades, those stresses feel happily far away for a minute or two. Chalmers! Joe's voice is loud, always a holler, and it comes from somewhere behind me. Joe and I met at Princeton a disgustingly long time ago. He was studying for a second degree and me my first. He was best man at my wedding. If only I'd listened when he offered to cover for me if I wanted to make a run for it the night before, then I wouldn't have winded up a divorcee before I was even 30. In our 18 years of friendship, Joe has gone from running a small business from his college bedroom to having a global empire. We are worlds apart. While I was getting divorced and fundamentally stalling my career, he was building airplanes, investing in innovative technology, and becoming a world-renowned philanthropist. But he's the kind of man who knows exactly where he came from, a rundown town in West Yorkshire, England, and who his real friends are. And boy, has he paid me back for years of friendship, in a way I never would have asked for, by making me his CFO. But I'm extremely grateful. Work is kind of my solace, my distraction, my other half and family. I stand as Joe bounds down stone steps from his palatial home to the large infinity pool and welcomes me with his big arms and stiff chest, nearly winding me as he thumps my back. His tasseled sombrero falls off his tightly curled hair, staying attached to him by a band under his chin. You made it. Good to see you, matey, he says. It's only Monday, and you saw me on Friday in the office, I tell him. This is true, but there's nothing like seeing you at home. What are we drinking, old boy? Rum punch? He signals to Monique, a member of his kitchen staff who is surreptitiously hovering in the distance, gesticulating that he'd like a drink. Pretty pleased with a cherry on top, he calls to her. Then turning back to me, he asks, The brewing storm didn't put you off then? I raise my brows as we come to sit again on opposite sides of the table, though both facing the view of the crystal-clear waters below our elevated location on the hilly island. There isn't a sign of a storm in the sky as far as we can see across the Atlantic. The news is saying it could turn into a hurricane over the next couple of days, I tell him. They always say that, drama llamas. I've spent many an hurricane out here, and they always fizzle out or go off course eventually. Nothing to worry about. Looking to the horizon, I'm inclined to agree. Once Monique has served Joe a drink, which he slurps with satisfaction through a straw, he says, So, in the way every conversation no one wants to have begins, the word in the office is that you're single again, matey. What happened to Lauren or Laura or Layla? Lou. And we just ran our course. No story. As I speak, Ella, Joe's wife, appears, floating down the steps toward us in a floor-sweeping turquoise kimono and holding what looks like another 3 rum punches. When are you going to settle down, Luke Chalmers? She asks. From the kitchen, she adds, setting down our drinks on the table and coming to sit on Joe's lap, her arm draped around his neck. These guys have built a business together, had 4 kids together, and never lost their youthful romance. It's special, admirable, and enviable. Settling doesn't come off for everyone, I tell her. Not if you stick to a 2 months and you're out rule, she says, chomping a glazed cherry from the top of her drink. I don't have a rule. Name one woman since your divorce that you've been with for more than 2 months. She's got me there. Though there was one time, one relationship, one person, after my wife and I separated. It might only have lasted 6 weeks, but under different circumstances, she might have been the sound of one of Joe's speedboats, and then its appearance on the Caribbean Sea from behind the rock face of the island, stops me from completing the thought. She might have been the one. Good thing, too. I don't need to go back there. I don't need to have thoughts about. Rising from my chair to get a closer look, I think I'm seeing things, a figment of my imagination. It must be the heat or the alcohol making my mind play tricks on me. I sure hope so. Otherwise, the woman I'm staring down at as the speedboat pulls into the beach beneath us is... Carrie? I spin around to look at Joe. What the fuck is Carrie doing here? Carrie? Who do you mean? He says, his voice many decibels louder than it ought to be. Who do I mean? Only the woman I was madly, utterly, undeniably, heartbreakingly crushed by 7 years ago. Don't mess with me, Joe. Is that Carrie Briggs down there? I can feel something I don't like coursing through me. Panic, anger, something else. I feel jittery, my hand shaking, all the parts of me beneath my rib cage seesawing. It must be anger. Joe holds up his palms. Yes, it is. I'm sorry to blindside you, but I needed you to come and deal with this tax stuff, and I wasn't convinced you would if... With Carrie? My voice is verging on screechy. Where the hell is Eric? The partner at the accountancy firm we usually deal with. Safe Eric, pompous Eric, who kisses Joe's ass, but who I absolutely have never lusted after. He's sick. He couldn't make it. I'm told Carrie is the next best thing at the firm, and she agreed to come last minute. Ella rises from Joe's lap. I don't miss her scowling at him, however brief it is, before she comes to my side and looks down at the woman getting off the boat and walking barefoot, shoes in hand, along the wood-decked pathway off the sand and up the steps to the resort. It's been a long time, Luke. There's nothing still between you two, is there? Ella asks, not meeting my eyes, which is good because I don't have to meet hers in return. Instead, I can seethe or flip out in whatever manner I like as I watch my one ex, who used to make my heart rate soar the way it is right now, climb the stone steps in a smart white suit. looking a lot more womanly than the junior associate I fell for years ago. Nothing, I manage. Nothing there at all. Yet my head is screaming at me. I need to get off this island now. She was one brief moment in time, but a cataclysmic one nonetheless. My feet are already backing me away from the rock's edge. I'm already fleeing, until I back into Joe's big frame, who's now standing behind me. His cactus print shirt might as well be real because it couldn't cause me any more discomfort than I already feel. I need you, Luke. This is a job for my CFO. Shit. One person on this island ruined my career once. Another, whose big burly weight is behind me now, made it. I owe him. I think I nod. I'll stay. But I have no idea if my synapses are firing. I'm paralyzed by something, an emotion, and I don't know what it is, but it feels awfully close to fear. I shift my position to face Joe and Ella. I need to, what do I need? Go for a run. That'll fix this. Burn off whatever I'm feeling. Shake off seeing Carrie again for the first time in 7 years. If I can't fix it, at least I can try to process the absolute predicament I'm stuck in. Joe eyes me, his brows low and knitted together. He knows the story of Carrie and me. He also knows me well enough to see my mind spiraling behind my controlled facade, even though I hope he can't. You're going for a run after one of Monique's rum punches, Ella asks. Are you mad? No better time for it, I say, hoping she doesn't catch the tremor in my voice. Before you do, Joe pulls an envelope from the back pocket of his lime green shorts. An invitation to dinner tonight. Troy's finest Caribbean dishes and matched wines. I take the offering from him. I'm already there. Great, because you've also left a very similar invitation for Carrie and her pod, CFO to tax advisor. We'll see you both at 8. I like to get to know my advisors before they tell me things I don't want to hear. Dinner, I gawk. With Carrie. Fuck. That saying about giving with one hand and taking away from the other springs to mind. I mutter, not quietly enough. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, my friend, Joe tells me, striding back to the table and gulping down his cocktail. Did you just refer to yourself as God? I ask, my cardiorespiratory system calming now that I'm on safer ground, bantering with my friend. Joe holds his arms out as if to say, take a look around you. This is my island. Ella rolls her eyes playfully, and I chortle, what a dickhead. But my lightness is fleeting, because 60 yards away from us, Carrie has made it to the top of the beach steps, where she rotates on the spot, taking in the view from the highest point on the island. I dart behind the nearest palm tree, knocking over a silver wine bucket in a stand as I go, and lean my shoulders back against the firm trunk as I try not to hyperventilate. I'm going for that run.
Chapter 4. Carrie. Wow. Just wow. Eric must be gutted he has stomach flu. No pun intended. I've climbed the stone steps to Mr. Hettich's private resort, roasting under the heat of the afternoon sun. But nothing, not even the ever-present and lingering knowledge that Luke Chalmers is somewhere on this island, can destroy the view for me. I turn 360 degrees on the spot at the top of the hillside while Mr. Hettich's staff come by me carrying my luggage. 2 large dogs, English pointers, I think, have followed us up from the beach, tails wagging. The resort is centered around what I presume is the main house and residence of my client. Around it, I count 10 individual holiday cottages, each with a pool and hot tub on its veranda. The main house is 3-tiered, like a beautiful white wedding cake, each layer round. The top floor has a white peaked roof, as opposed to figurines of a bride and groom, but it stands above a middle tier that has a pillared terrace set with multiple dining tables. Then, below that, steps lead down to a large infinity pool with a swim-up bar, sun loungers, and tables with expensive-looking parasols. This truly is how the other half live. Or more like how the wealthiest 1% of the population live. Beyond the accommodation is lush greenery that covers most of the teardrop-shaped land, except for one area that looks like much more modest accommodation down the hillside. Presumably the area that looks more like the kind of holiday accommodation I would fund myself, the staff digs. Incredible. The land trails around its northern side into smooth white sand beaches, which dissolve into crystal-clear waters. Even from this high-up vantage point, I can see rocks beneath the flat surface. 15 or 20 yards into the water, a few boats, dinghies, and speedboats are anchored. Conversely, the southern side of the island seems to drop from rocks to water. There's a boathouse and dock on that side too, and I can see the tip of a mast pole. I can only imagine the size of the boat it belongs to. There's not even a wispy cloud in the bluest of skies, and the only sound I hear is the tweeting of birds. Until a clatter steals my attention, like something metal being dropped to the tiles around the main pool. I could swear there's a flash of person moving behind a palm tree when I look, but when I blink, it's gone. Before I locate the source of the sound, Jenny, one of the crew who drove me by boat from Tortola to Sharathonia, asks, "Ms. Briggs? Sorry, Carrie, can I show you to your pod?" I'm mind blown. Yes, that would be super, thank you. She smiles in a way that's sweet, obliging, and knowing all at once. This way. As sweet as she may be, with her words, she has unkindly brought me back from dreamland. I remember now why I was so eager to get off the plane on the tarmac at JFK, to give up a first-class seat and all of this. I search the landscape as we move, looking for Luke. Could I be so lucky to have 2 men who should have been meeting this week come down with gastroenteritis? Luke Chalmers would deserve worse. Much worse. I'm thinking about what that might look like. German measles, dengue, elephantiasis. As Jenny opens the door to my pod. To describe my bedroom for the next 4 nights as a pod truly does it a disservice. In the center of the round room is a circle-shaped bed that could sleep an entire family. Despite its shape, the crisp white bedding is tucked under the mattress without a crease. Some things defy logic, this entire trip being one such thing. A bow has been tied across the diameter of the bed using gold silk, as if it's a gift. I wonder if anyone would notice me sneaking it home with me as luggage. Set perfectly in the middle of my would-be loot is a glimmering gold envelope, which I absolutely will open, but not before I've checked out the ensuite, which has a tub I could literally swim in, a flat-screen television that's extended from the ceiling, and a glass door through to an outside shower. This is nuts. Categorically nuts. "Is everything okay for you, Carrie?" Jenny asks. Okay. For sure. Thank you. Jenny must be 23 or 4, maybe younger, yet she doesn't seem fazed by the setting in the least. I'll bet this is a seasonal job, looking after guests who'll tip extremely well and playing around with Mr. Hettich's boats and toys in her spare time. Maybe frolicking with the other crew, one of whom, Henry, was young, tanned, and buff beneath his fitted black polo and butt-hugging Bermuda shorts. I wasn't intending to look, but some things demand attention. Great, then I'll leave you to it. There are towels in the wardrobe, and welcome drinks and snacks have just arrived on the veranda. If you need anything at all, there are numbers for the bar, the main kitchen, and the water crew by the phone on the bedside table. Oh, and don't forget to open the invitation on your bed. I thank Jenny, not knowing whether I'm supposed to tip her or not, and then make a snap decision to tip all the staff when I leave. After waving her off, I take a rum punch, which comes with a delightful pinch of nutmeg on top, from the table on my personal veranda. Sipping the smooth but hard liquor, I relieve my hot feet from my toe-pinching leather flats and take the gold envelope from the bed, setting down my glass to find out what awaits me. Dear Carrie, we would be delighted if you would join us for dinner at 8 p.m. on the main terrace. Beach smart dress code. Yours, Luke Chalmers, and the Hettich family. Stomach flu was wishful thinking. Is this a joke? Luke, inviting me to dinner? I sit down onto the edge of the bed before I fall down. As I stare at the card in my hand, I remember the first note Luke ever left me. I'd been his associate for more than a year, the two of us sharing an office. He was on the cusp of making partner at the accountancy firm we worked for then. It had been months of crush, wanton, and lust on my part, but he'd had a wife. I knew things hadn't been great between them for a long time, and 6 weeks before he wrote the note, they'd separated. In those 6 weeks, it seemed like everything I felt for him was amplified. There was a lingering tension in our office from the moment we both entered until the lights went out at night. I wanted him so badly I could barely concentrate on my work. I could feel it ramping up for him, too. The grazes and accidental touches, the looks that were held a moment too long. Then, one morning, I returned to the office from a meeting to find a handwritten note folded under the keyboard on my desk. Room 210, the Old Court Hotel, 12 p.m. Luke. Kiss. I felt a rush, a thrill, unlike anything I'd ever felt before when I held that piece of paper. But today's note should have come with a trigger warning, or at least an apology. I turn the card over in my hand to make sure there are no hidden words on the other side. Nothing. Instinctively, I pick up my phone and message Callum. I can't do this. He fires back. You can do this. He doesn't have a hold over you anymore. Don't throw away your career on him again. Pull up those big girl panties. I love you. C. Kiss. Almost simultaneously, my boss, the big boss, Eric's boss, the head of the New York office who told me I was coming on this trip, sends me a message. Good luck. Hettich is eccentric, but great. Enjoy the views. Rachel. Oh, God. I actually have to go through with this.
Chapter 5. Luke. I'm pacing the tiled floor in my pod, aircon blasting because I'm hot, though the fact my linen shirt is sticking to my skin is nothing to do with the temperature outside. It is everything to do with seeing Carrie again. Not just fleetingly seeing her, not bumping into her as we both get out of a cab or head into a midtown bar after work. This is dinner, sitting across the table from her. Hours of excruciating small talk, pretense, a multitude of unspoken questions about the past. I haven't seen her for 7 years. She's part of the very worst part of my life. My career in tatters, a divorce imminent, family life obliterated, and the woman I was utterly infatuated with blocking me, not returning my emails, returning to send her 6 handwritten letters I mailed her, with all but the first unopened. Making abundantly clear that when everything else was dealt with, there could still never be a chance for us. She's my nemesis. And though I'm loath to admit it, no matter how much Ella presses me, my Achilles heel. There's a tap on my door. It's only 7:30, so I know before I answer that Joe will be waiting for me, and that he's here to ask, Chalmers, a pre-drink? I stare at him, similarly dressed in cream chinos and a linen shirt, though to his eccentric Hawaiian print, I'm wearing pale blue, and to his turtle-inspired bucket hat, I'm wearing none. The upshot is, his outfit is significantly more relaxed than mine. Have I overdone this? Have I subconsciously overdressed to appear fine? I am fine, a soprano version of my inner voice sings. I am so not fine, normal-pitched me retorts. I can't do this, Hettich. It's only a sundowner, old boy. The sun set an hour ago, and you know what I mean. This, dinner, meetings, Carrie. He steps inside and closes the door behind him, eyeing me, hands in pockets as if his next words will be emphatic. You could run. It would be cowardly and honestly career-ending because, one, there comes a point in life when you have to deal with your past, and two, I don't understand all this tax and accounting kerfuffle, which is why I employed you and gave you an hellish signing-on bonus to deal with it for me. The bonus was nice, but cowardly? More like letting sleeping dogs lie, not dredging up the past. He holds up his hands. Take or leave my warning. You can run, or you can accept the challenge. Finally deal with the reason you're a lonely and increasingly old man. Hey! Did you have those flecks of gray last time you saw her? My hand automatically goes to my product-styled hair. No, but that's probably because she caused half of them, I mutter. He gestures to the door with a pointed thumb. Let's get a cocktail and calm those geriatric nerves. You're 4 years older than me. Therefore 4 years wiser. It's time to man up, Chalmers. Not least because I ordered a crate of Pusser's rum and it arrived this morning. Ordinarily, Joe's favorite cocktail, a painkiller made with Pusser's rum, would be a great idea, but as it happens, I already feel numb. Turning out the lights, I reluctantly head to the terrace, following the flapping fingers of Joe's outrageous hat. 2 painkillers have helped. Standing on the terrace with Joe, watching sailboats drifting across the ocean, Ella's playlist of chilled re-recordings of chart-topping hits playing in the background, tea lights twisted round and dancing on the palm trees, I feel more myself. Joe and I are talking about going sailing on Wednesday, maybe taking out a couple of jet skis. They're upgraded since your last trip. The guys tell me they're faster than anything else they've ridden. By guys, he means his staff, who really have a pleasant lifestyle out here. True, they make themselves available for Joe's every whim, but they get free accommodation and a free pass to all the island's amenities, including use of the main resort when Joe and his family and friends aren't around. Hey, you two. My sister said I'd find you out here. I turned to see Alicia, Ella's sister, coming our way, a cocktail in hand, her long dress twisting around her ankles. Today's look is long plaits of hair coiled on top of her head, signature large gold hoops tapping her neck as she moves. Alicia, it's been a while, I tell her, folding her into an embrace. She has on her usual lathering of lemon moisturizer, which smells nice but is mostly to fend off mosquitoes, which are rife this time of year, whether or not the island has been fogged. Certainly too long, she says. Though born in the British Virgin Islands, Alicia now lives on St. Martin and has a slightly different rhythm to her accent than her sister. How are you, Lukey? Still footloose and fancy-free, betting anyone who'll have you and buying my nieces and nephews bigger gifts than I'll ever afford, just so they like you best. I laugh so hard my head drops back. It's a release I've needed. It's not about the price, Alicia. It's about how cool they are. You know that. She shakes her head, pointing a long red fingernail at me. You play fair. Remember, blood is thicker than water. That sounds like a threat, I tease. Boy, you know it is, but it's good to see you. You too. Ella and the kids are nearly ready. They'll be out in a minute, she says. The kids want to dress up. Noah is Buzz Lightyear. Toby is Rusty from Cars. Jar is Peppa Pig. And my awful sister has dressed the Bubba as a minion. I'm glad I was out here with a painkiller, Joe says. They'll be high on life and drama. Oh, yes, Alicia says, giggling. There have been a few cross words. She gestures toward a table that's been set for 11 people behind us. Who else is joining us, Joe? He finishes his drink and signals in the direction of the bar and Monique for another. Us 3. Ella and the entire cast of Disney+. Jenny and Henry because they'll be helping to crew Ella too if we take her out on Wednesday. I've always liked this about Joe. He involves his staff. He doesn't treat them like second-rate citizens, and that's how it should be done, in my view. I'll never be wealthy enough to need round-the-clock help on my own private island, but my fictitious staff would be well looked after too. Still, his kindness toward his staff is wiped out by the tormenting glint in his eyes as he looks my way and adds, "And hopefully my tax advisor, if she accepts Luke's invitation." If looks could kill, this week would have just become a Knives Out sort of week. Who murdered Joe Hettich? Me, with my mind. "Am I missing something?" Alicia asks, switching her focus between Joe and me. I subconsciously check my watch, feeling increasingly fidgety. "Now's not the time to catch on," Joe says. "Because there's nothing to catch," I tell them. I should have known she'd be perfectly punctual. She always was. Carrie appears, walking along the pathway etched into the top of the rock face, heading our way. She's wearing a lilac pleated skirt that finishes just below her knee, nipped in at the waist by a belt. I remember the feel of her waist in my hands, exactly where her white blouse tucks in. I watch her every step as she moves closer toward us, reaching the terrace and heading our way. I can't take my eyes off her, like a bug to a fluorescent light. She's summer smart. Presumably her invitation had the same dress code stated on it as mine, but she's much smarter, chicer, more girl out of the city than the rest of us. Not girl, I amend as she comes closer, her perfume reaching me on the barely there breeze. She's not the girl I fell for. She's a woman. Her long auburn hair falls in waves around her shoulders. My fingers twitch at the thought of how I used to run them through her soft curls. Her white blouse is open enough at the neck for me to see slender collarbones that I've kissed before. Her lips are painted a subtle shade of pink, invitingly so. And her features seem to hold more stories. They seem wiser. I wonder if this version of Carrie would have been smart enough never to have gotten involved with me. Smart enough to have saved me from a whole load of heartache. Speaking of which, that organ is currently thumping against my ribcage like a pneumatic drill. Carrie makes straight for Joe, but there's a split second of hesitation in which I know she clocks me in her peripheral vision. "Mr. Hettich, it's an absolute pleasure," she says, sounding unwaveringly confident, as if her world hasn't been knocked off its axis, as mine has. "Gary, lovely to finally meet you," my so-called buddy says, hitting right off the bat with a reminder that we share a past. A heated, explosive, life-altering past. "Thank you for joining us for dinner. I'd like to get to know who I'm working with before we get down to business." Joe would have gone in for a hug. That's his style, whether he's in work mode or not. But Carrie thrusts out her hand and shakes forcefully, succinctly. "I'm thrilled to be here. Your island is stunning." "Thank you. My wife will be delighted to hear it. She's designed everything on it. Ella will be here in a minute or two." "I can't wait to meet her, Mr. Hettich." She's poised but stiff with it, increasingly so. Still not looking anywhere other than at Joe or out to sea. "It's Joe or Hettich. I'll respond to either, but no need for the mister." She smiles and I see the familiar shape of her face, the rise of her cheekbones, the softening of her emerald green eyes. She's magnetic still, impossible to resist. Just like driving by a car crash on the I-95 and rubbernecking. "Joe," she says, nodding once. "Let me introduce you to Alicia," Joe says. "And you already know my CFO, Luke." Now I feel her intentionally avoiding me, her cheeks flushing, her eyes laser-focused on Alicia, as she says tightly, "Really nice to meet you," and shakes her hand. I think I've stopped breathing. Not to be melodramatic or anything, but I might genuinely be experiencing the initial stages of a cardiac arrest as I wait for what I know is coming. To anyone else, the way Carrie's chest stutters with her next inhalation might go unnoticed, but I remember everything about her body and the way it reacts. I see it. I see her. Yet I'm still unprepared for the moment our eyes lock on each other's. still taken aback by hearing my name leave her soft, full, fucking annoyingly kissable lips. Luke. She holds out a hand and I forget I'm holding a drink in mine as I thrust my painkiller at her, splashing it over her outfit and somehow losing my grip of everything as the glass shatters on the decking, the drink soaking my pants in the process. Shit. Sorry. Can somebody help? I ask. Am I going to drop something every goddamn time I see her? Monique appears out of nowhere with a rag for the white tiles and another for Carrie's clothes. Fuck. If I was nervous before. I see her jaw roll before she tells me, Don't worry about it. Clothes can be dry cleaned. In her firm tone, I hear her meaning. Stains can be erased from clothes. Our history can't be overcome so easily. Her scathing look hits me with a proverbial slap across my face. It's a look that reminds me that she blocked me. That she didn't return my calls, my endless emails, my texts, my letters that were returned unread. She left no room for a second chance. She didn't leave the door open for us to stay in touch, be friends. Even if platonically, I'd have taken it. I feel my eyes narrow. All the pain, all the hurt. No. She doesn't have the right to be pissed at me. She's damn right history can't be erased. I loathe this woman.
Chapter 6. Carrie. Seeing Luke in the flesh after all the years is the way I imagine a small nut would feel if it were to be cracked by a sledgehammer. My shell feels broken, my insides bared and smashed to pieces. The last time I saw him, he was rushing into a meeting, faltering in his stride momentarily when he saw me in the corridor. Though we were a secret at work because he was about to be made a partner and I was his junior associate, we shared a knowing smile, an expression that held a heated promise. Yet, hours later, as I lay dressed in red lingerie that I'd bought for Luke's birthday, waiting for him on the bed of our hotel room, he was plotting a return to his pregnant wife. I need to hold it together. No matter that the half-moon creases at the sides of his mouth when he smiles seem deeper, sweeter now, that the stubble lining his strong jaw is the same length I used to feel when I held his face in my palms, though flecked with gray that makes him appear knowledgeable, more experienced. That the lines at the edges of his eyes make him seem softer, more welcoming. Or that the body I used to know so well seems unchanged where his shirt hugs his torso. Broader, perhaps, but still firm, still desirable. Despite all of that, setting aside the way he has instantly turned my insides to mush, ignoring the voice in my head screaming that I detest him for what he did to me, I need to remember that I'm here in my capacity as a professional, an advisor to his business. I straighten my now damp and cocktail-stained clothes and clear my throat. Thank you for the dinner invitation, I tell him, hating myself for being civilized as much as I hate him for using me and casting me aside when the novelty and excitement of us had worn off. That always was your problem, he says, his voice low and ill-tempered, for my ears only, as Joe and Alicia talk amongst themselves. My problem? I snipe, unintentionally exposing my emotions. Putting two and two together and jumping to the wrong conclusions. Not sitting back in the problem for long enough to wait for the solution to come along. I didn't invite you. Hettich did. Ah, a metaphor. What are you, a lyricist now? Ever the chameleon. Take it as you will. A waitress appears, wearing a crisp white shirt with Sherathonia embroidered onto the pocket in gold thread, holding a tray of nibbles. Luke takes an olive on a stick, sucking it into his mouth with a pop and a smirk. I do the same. He wants to play nasty? I'll play. Well, I'm lucky I had an excellent mentor as a junior associate, Luke. You taught me an awful lot about the kind of advisor I need to be and the kind of person I absolutely don't. With that burn, I turn my back on him and step towards Hettich. But as I do, I'm almost bowled off my feet by a running child, surging toward Luke with outstretched airplane arms and dressed as Buzz Lightyear. To infinity and beyond! The boy, maybe 7 or 8, crashes into Luke, who sweeps him up into the air like he weighs the same as a feather and raises him above his head, spinning on the spot so that Buzz is flying. Then he drops him seamlessly onto his hip, as if he's held this boy countless times before. "How you doing, buddy?" Luke asks. Any trace of hostility is gone, replaced by something much warmer.